This is a parable, a quiet story. Let it unfold. The woodland was still in the early morning. Light moved through the trees in long, slow columns, settling on moss and stone, and the turned earth of old paths. Somewhere above, a bird was singing, quietly, unhurried. A young deer stood among the oaks and birches, not a fawn, but not yet fully grown. She had been walking for some time already, moving quietly through the trees, pausing when the light shifted, reading the woodland the way creatures do when they are paying attention. And yet, beneath the quiet, there was something, a dryness, not in the air. The morning air was cool and green, but somewhere deeper, in the body, in the breath. The deer did not know the word for thirst, but she knew the feeling. How the body leans towards something it cannot name. How a question forms without words. And she knew the way that creatures know things, before thought arrives to confirm them, that water was not impossible, not far beyond imagining. Somewhere in this woodland there was a source. She could not have said how she knew this, only that she did, a knowing deep in the bone, a thread faint but present. She turned her head, ears moving slowly, and began to walk. The woodland was beautiful. This is worth saying because the thirst did not erase it. The path was dappled and shifting. Light fell through leaves and moved like breath. The ground was soft beneath her feet, cushioned with years of fallen things, returning quietly to the earth. She paused at the foot of a large oak, its roots spreading wide as old arms, and stood there a long moment. Something settled in her. She did not know the word for peace, but she felt it. The way the world sometimes offers a moment that asks nothing of you, only to be received. Something settled in her. She did not know the word for peace, but she felt it. She felt it in the way that the world sometimes offers a moment that asks nothing of you, only to be received. She walked on. The thread was still there, faint but enough. And then ahead, another path appeared, wider than the one she had been following, more worn, more certain looking. The kind of path that many feet have taken that seemed to know exactly where it was going. She moved toward it. Her steps quickened. The wide path pressed forward, and the deer found herself moving with an urgency she had not felt before. Something about this path suggested that water was close. That effort would find it, that if she moved faster, if she pushed through, if she did not stop, she walked for a long time. The dappled light faded behind her, the trees thinned, the ground grew harder beneath her feet, and her breathing grew heavier. and the distance she had covered sat in her legs like weight. And then the path ended at a place where water should have been. A hollow in the land, stones smoothed by ancient rivers, the memory of water. But nothing now. The deer stood there and did not move. She lowered her head, sniffed the dry earth, lifted her head again. Her thirst was sharper than before. She had walked so far and so fast, and the ground was dry. Slowly, she turned back. The way back was slower. She moved through the thinning trees and found the place where the paths had divided. She stood there. She paused there and stood still. The inner knowing was quieter now, not gone, but harder to hear. How a voice is harder to hear after you've been somewhere loud. She walked on. The woodland deepened again. The light softened. The path was good. And somewhere along the way, she could not have said when, the deer stopped choosing. It wasn't deliberate. There was no moment of decision, only a gradual following of whatever was easier, whatever required less. A path that curved pleasantly away from effort. The shade of certain trees, a small clearing where the grass was soft, where she rested longer than she meant to, where the thirst grew quiet enough that she almost forgot it was there. By the time the deer lifted her head and looked around her, the light had changed. The woodland felt different, closer. The trees stood in unfamiliar arrangements. The sounds were other sounds. She turned and turned again. The inner knowing when she reached for it did not answer clearly. She stood very still. This was not the way. This was not where she had meant to be. And the thirst, which she had almost forgotten in the wandering, made itself known again, sharper now, more honest. But she understood how creatures understand before thought catches up, that something was required of her. It wasn't arriving. It wasn't striving. She had tried that. It wasn't effort. The wide path had taken everything she had and left the ground dry. Something quieter than that. She lowered her head. She breathed. And in the breathing, something returned. Faint. Like a thread, but there. The inner knowing had not left her. It had only been waiting for her to be still enough to hear it. She turned, not because she could see the way, but because something in her knew the direction. One careful step, then another. The woodland changed as she walked. The trees grew less crowded. Light returned in longer, slower columns. The air held something, faint but present. The coolness that comes before water. The deer did not quicken her pace. She moved carefully, following the thread, trusting what she could not yet see. The ground softened then softened again. Moss appeared on the stones, the trees opened. And there, in a quiet place, where the land curved gently downward and the light fell cleanly through a break in the canopy, water. A small stream, moving, unhurried, clear over pale stones. The deer stood at the edge for a long moment. She did not rush. She stepped forward, lowered her head, and drank. The water was cold, it was clean. It met the thirst, not as a reward, but as something that had always been there, waiting without impatience for her to arrive. She drank until she was satisfied. Then she lifted her head and stood quietly. The stream moving past her feet as though nothing had been difficult at all. She lay down on the soft ground beside the water. Light came through the trees above her. A bird was singing. The stream moved. The woodland was not empty. It had never been empty. She rested, and the water remained, running clear and quiet and unhurried over the pale stones, as it had been running long before she arrived, and would run long after she rose and walked on. Perhaps you know of one of these paths, the wide one that promised water, but asked for everything first. The drifting one, the one that offered rest but led you somewhere you did not mean to go. Perhaps you know what it is to be still for the first time in a long time and find that something in you still knows the direction. That thread, that quiet knowing, is not your own strength. It was placed in you by the one who made the water. And the water is still there, running clear, waiting without impatience. Come, drink.